Numerous individuals accept cutting-edge issues require innovative arrangements. It's not exactly so. Complex advancements at times require basic, low-tech arrangements that may cost close to nothing. Modest here doesn't mean subpar, since these arrangements are regularly in a way that is better than the more costly cutting-edge arrangements. This rundown is proof that the KISS keep it simple, stupid rule is here and there the most ideal approach. As the rule states, most things work best when they are kept basic. Ostrich, Quills and car makers put a ton of exertion into guaranteeing your new vehicle turns out of their industrial facilities with a flawless paint job. That is the reason they vigorously put resources into cutting-edge gear like innovative artistic creation stations, mechanical robots and ostrich quills. Did we simply state ostrich quills? Indeed. Female ostrich plumes really. The littlest residue molecule can annihilate the best paint job, and nobody realizes that better than car makers. This is the reason they outlined their artwork offices from the fundamental industrial facility. They even impact laborers and guests to the canvas divisions without to eliminate dust and free fiber that might be holding tight their garments. Notwithstanding, that isn't sufficient, since minute residue particles actually discover their way in and stick on vehicles anticipating painting. Car makers dispose of these particles by running the vehicles through monster dusters made out of female ostrich plumes just before painting. 1. Mirrors and lifts. Early lifts didn't have mirrors. Producers just added mirrors since they would not like to contribute their time, exertion and cash into making quicker lifts. Everything started quite a few years back, when lifts were as yet another creation. Clients frequently whined the lifts were excessively moderate. Most lift makers got back to the planning phase to plan quicker lifts, which was costly. Nonetheless, one organization chose to do things a piece in an unexpected way. It led an exploration and found most clients thought lifts were more slow than they truly were. Individuals just whined in light of the fact that they don't had anything to do other than gaze at the dividers of the lifts while contemplating the numerous terrible things that could occur if the link snapped and the lift tumbled to the ground. The lift organization closed. They required an approach to divert individuals. They added reflex so individuals could consider their appearance while in lifts. Clients in a flash forgot about time and now thought lifts were quicker than they were. 2. Calculated runways and plane-carrying warships. In the event that you've seen an overhead photograph of a cutting-edge plane-carrying warship or even observed one very close, you will see the runway is constantly calculated and never straight. This differentiates with the World War II-time plane-carrying warships that had straight runways. For what reason is this, sir? This has an inseparable tie to the creation of the flymotor. World War II period transporters conveyed propeller-driven planes, which required more limited runways to take off and land. This implied the transporters could dispatch and recuperate planes all the while. Nonetheless, this changed when stream-controlled planes tagged along. Flymotors require longer runways for takeoff or landing. This implied the transporters were either dispatching or recuperating planes and couldn't do both simultaneously. In addition, landing jets that miss the capturing wire, which helps in quickly decelerating a setting down plane, would not have enough runway space to taxi and take off to endeavor another arrival. One answer for these issues was to fabricate bigger plane-carrying warships with longer runways. This proposal was thrown away on the grounds that it didn't take care of all the previously mentioned issues. A subsequent proposal was to leave setting down planes drifting over the transporter while different planes took off. In any case, this too was surrendered on the grounds that planes don't convey enough fuel. The third choice was to tilt the runways on existing transporters to augment runway space. The calculated runways were longer and tackled each issue the naval force had with more limited airways. 3. PlayStation 3 consoles and supercomputers. A couple of years back, the U.S. Air Force utilized 1,760 Sony PlayStation 3 consoles to fabricate the most remarkable supercomputer in the U.S. Department of Defense and the 33rd most impressive supercomputer on the planet. The supercomputer was amazing to such an extent that it could perform 500 million numerical activities in a single second and break down over a billion pixels in a single moment. The Air Force utilized it to deal with high-goal satellite pictures, distinguish indistinct items in space, and investigation into computerized reasoning. A PlayStation 3 expense $400 each. At the time, the aviation-based armed forces manufactured the supercomputer, while a comparable part from a genuine PC cost around $10,000. This put the expense of the whole task at $2 million, which is between 5 to 10% the cost of an ordinary supercomputer of comparable capability. 4. Xbox 360 Regulators and Atomic submarines. A periscope is one of the characterizing highlights of a submarine. It's that tube-like instrument submariners use to see above water while lowered. Periscopes have seen an overhaul of late and have advanced from the customary cylinder-like shaft with 45-degree mirrors into high-goal cameras that can see 360 degrees over the submarine. The U.S. Navy utilizes these advanced periscopes in its most recent Virginia-class atomic-controlled submarines. In any case, this innovative hardware has the most low-tech controls ever. The Xbox 360 regulator. The utilization of Xbox regulators in U.S. Navy submarines is an ongoing turn of events. Until a couple of years prior, the naval force controlled its advanced periscopes with $38,000 joysticks. It just traded them for Xbox regulators after junior officials whined the joysticks were tremendous, hefty and required broad preparing. Xbox 360 regulators then again cost around $39.95 each. They're light, simple to utilize and don't need broad preparing. They're likewise simple to supplant since they can be bought from the closest game store. 5. Velcro and NASA. The non-appearance of gravity is one of the most evident issues NASA experienced in the beginning of room travel. As we as a whole know, gravity is the explanation everything remains on the ground. In a weightless climate like space, whatever isn't made sure about to the ground or dividers will simply continue skimming around. NASA required an approach to shield apparatuses and hardware from gliding around without essentially darting them to the ground or divider. So it went to Velcro, the designer of snare and circle latches, and both cooperated to consummate a snare and circle clasp that won't just shield stuff from drifting around yet will likewise endure the extraordinary climate of room. NASA utilizes heaps of Velcro in its undertakings. It even added them to spacesuit head protectors so space explorers can scratch their noses while spacewalking. Little miracle, numerous individuals wrongly think NASA created snare and circle clasp. NASA didn't imagine snare and circle latches, however, as it said about Velcro in 1969. We were unable to fly without it. 6. Rodents and landmines. Landmines are a colossal issue in previous combat areas, considering they possibly detonate when a person or thing steps on them. They can stay dynamic for quite a long time, even long after the war is finished. Consistently, a large number of individuals lose their carries-on with subsequent to stepping on fail to remember landmines. Finding and deactivating these landmines is an extremely troublesome and risky work, even with bomb recognition hardware. A few associations supplant the bomb location gear with bomb discovery canines, yet these canines are frequently costly to move and muddle to utilize. In 1997, An enemy of landmine NGO called APOPO stepped in with a less expensive and better arrangement: rodents. These aren't your normal tram rodents, however. The African Goliath pouched rodent, which are as extensive as felines. The rodents have awful vision yet incredible feeling of smell, which they use to identify the TNT in the landmines. African Goliath pouched rodents are quicker and better than people and canines. A rodent will cover 2,000 square feet in only 20 minutes. A human outfitted with bomb identifiers will cover similar separation in 4 days. The rodents are additionally light enough to stroll over landmines without setting off them. APOPO's rodents have identified more than 13,200 landmines in a few nations so far. 7. A $10 space name and Wannacry. A couple of years back, the world experienced one of the most noticeably awful ransomware assaults ever observed. Wannacry, as it was called, tainted more than 300,000 PCs in 150 nations. The infection kept proprietors out of their PCs and educated them to pay several dollars in Bitcoin as payoff. Wannacry kept attacking the world until a man recognized as malware tech purchased an area name. Space names are not costly. They cost around $10, all things considered. In any case, that basic activity was sufficient to deliver Wannacry compliant. It in a split second prevented spreading and eliminated itself from each PC it had tainted. How could this occur? This happened on the grounds that malware tech abused something very similar that made Wannacry effective. Not at all like standard infections. Ransomwares consistently keep up a correspondence channel that interfaces the assailant to the person in question. While this may sound moronic, the assailant vary this channel to send installment data to their casualties, gather emancipates and open their PCs after installment. Be that as it may, this correspondence channel works the two different ways, since law authorization organizations could utilize it to follow the assailants. Aggressors counter this by building off buttons into their infection. This permits them to close down their infections the second they speculate they're being followed. For Wannacry, that off button was a space name. The assailants modified the infection to check the web for an unregistered space name at stretches. The infection would keep spreading if the space stayed unregistered, yet will immediately stop the second it was enrolled. Malware tech found that off button and enrolled the area name, halting the virus. 8. Speed tape and planes. We as a whole realize planes require customary upkeep since pilots can't stop on the closest cloud at whatever point they run into issues. Nonetheless, support is a major word here since it could allude to something as fundamental as holding the plane along with speed tape. Consider speed tape as the channel tape for planes. Like pipe tape, they can fix everything despite the fact that flying specialists restrict them to holding non-critical pieces of the plane together. They're viewed as a transitory arrangement and the issue will be typically figured out whenever the plane goes into upkeep. Speed tape costs $200 or $300 to thousands of dollars. While that may appear to be costly, it is less expensive when contrasted with the large numbers or even great many dollars carriers will lose if planes were removed from administration each time they have issues. 9. iPhones and the U.S. Army Special Operations Command. The U.S. Army Special Operations Command utilizes many particular portable applications during top military activities. Be that as it may, rather than creating costly gadgets to deal with those applications, they went to a less expensive other option: iPhones. While we don't have the foggiest idea what most of these applications do, we are aware of one that utilizes the split-screen highlight of the iPhone. The administrator sees a live film shot from a flying unmanned aerial vehicle on one piece of the screen and a guide indicating the course taken by the UAV on the other. A Business Insider report uncovered the military recently utilized Android-fueled Samsung Galaxy Note cell phones prior to changing to the iPhone 6s. The switch was fundamental in light of the fact that the applications regularly solidified on Samsung, continually requiring the administrators to restart the gadget. What's more, the iPhone 6s likewise would be advised to screen goal, which made photographs and recordings more keen. Before this transforms into another Samsung iPhone, Android iOS or Google Apple war. We should add that the Department of Defense pitched the more seasoned Samsung telephones it was utilizing at the time against the fresher iPhone 6s during Test 10.